Yella Beezy has reacted after his longtime brother Trapboy Freddy became a central figure in his capital murder trial.
Dallas police are now saying that rapper Yella Beezy hired a hitman to kill Mo3, his one-time friend turned rival.
The man who once stood beside him on one of the biggest records in Dallas rap history. The man who co-signed a joint project with him called I'm My Brother's Keeper. That same man is now being called a snitch because he could be the very reason Beezy never walks free again.
Dallas police arrested Kawan Dontrell Wright for murder. Now police say Marquise Conway, who also goes by Yella Beezy, hired him and promised him cash for killing Mo3. He was arrested yesterday.
Yo, what's good, fam? Today we're going deep into one of the most explosive betrayal stories in Dallas rap right now. We're going to walk you through how Yella Beezy and Trapboy Freddy built one of the tightest brotherhoods the city has ever seen, what shattered that bond, why Trapboy Freddy is being called a snitch, what the court records actually say about his role in this case, and why the streets have not stopped talking since this went public. This one is layered. Let's get into it. To understand what's happening now, you have to go back to where this started. Yella Beezy, born Marquise DeAndre Conway, came up out of the Oak Cliff neighborhood in Dallas, Texas. And for those who don't know the geography, Oak Cliff is the kind of place that produces people with something to prove. It sits just southwest of downtown Dallas, and for years, it was overlooked when people talked about rap coming out of Texas. Houston had its thing. San Antonio had its legends. But Dallas was always right there, always creating, always hungry. And Yella Beezy became the man who finally made the country pay attention. He started releasing mixtapes in the early 2010s, grinding through the underground circuit, building a following one track at a time. The music was raw and honest, rooted in trap but wrapped in a southern drawl that was distinctly Dallas. Then, in 2017, everything changed. A single called That's On Me started slow the way the best records do, quietly, then everywhere at once. The song exploded when a remix dropped featuring T.I., 2 Chainz, Young Jeezy, Boosie Badazz, and Rich the Kid. Overnight, Yella Beezy went from a regional force to a nationally recognized name. His album Ain't No Going Back entered the top half of the Billboard 200. But Sin Beezy kept the momentum rolling with collaborations alongside Young Thug and $2. By mid-2019, his music has surpassed 1 billion plays across all streaming platforms. 1 billion streams. From Oak Cliff, Dallas, he had done what so many before him tried and couldn't. And he hadn't done it alone, because throughout that rise there was always another name next to his. Trapboy Freddy, born Devarius Dantes Moore, came from the same Oak Cliff soil. He started rapping as a teenager, reportedly recording his first mixtape in 30 days after purchasing a studio kit for $1,400. His early projects, including the Trapboy Freddy Krueger series, established him as a voice for the streets of Dallas. He had a rawness to his delivery, a storytelling instinct, and an ability to tap into the emotional reality of his environment that made listeners feel every bar. Lil Quita became his breakthrough. Built around a viral freestyle sample, it earned Freddy recognition from YouTube itself as an artist on the rise. Erykah Badu invited him to perform at her birthday event. Young Thug and Young Dolph collaborated with him. But the most significant cosign Trapboy Freddy ever received came from Yella Beezy himself. In a conversation with DJ Vlad, Beezy publicly declared his belief in Freddy's future. He said that Freddy was going to continue doing his thing as long as Beezy was doing his, and vice versa. That's not just label talk, that's a public pledge of loyalty between two men who grew up breathing the same air, walking the same blocks, and understanding the same code. They appeared together constantly. They featured on each other's records, and when fans saw the two of them in the same visual, their energy was unmistakable. These weren't just associates, they were brothers in every sense that mattered on those streets. Now, before we go any further, let me keep it real with you. The two of them also shared something that would eventually complicate the story. Both Yella Beezy and Trapboy Freddy had relationships in the Dallas rap scene that overlapped in complicated ways. Because Trapboy Freddy had his own collaborative history with Mo3. He and Mo3 recorded together. A track called Can't Double Us became one of Freddy's fan favorites. In the Dallas scene, everyone was close enough to bump into each other, close enough to collaborate, and close enough for those relationships to get complicated when tension started rising between artists. But we'll get to that in a minute. Because first, let's talk about what these two built together. The friendship between Yella Beezy and Trapboy Freddy became its own brand. They moved through Dallas like a unit, When Beezy started climbing nationally, Freddy was right there in the mix, and Beezy didn't leave him behind. He brought Freddy onto the remix of That's On Me, the record that helped launch Beezy into the stratosphere. Standing alongside T.I., 2 Chainz, and Boosie Badazz, that placement meant something. It said, "This man is on my level, and I want the world to know it." Fans who follow both artists closely could feel the mutual investment. These weren't two men using each other for clout. This was genuine brotherhood on display. It culminated in May 2020 with the release of I'm My Brother's Keeper, a full-length collaborative mixtape spanning 13 tracks. The name alone told the story. Press materials at the time described them as kindred spirits, connected by their shared hometown, their raw authenticity, and their complementary styles. The project moved through the full range of what Dallas Trap had to offer: aggressive street anthems, come-up testimonies, and club records that hit the body. The two traded verses with electric chemistry, never stepping on each other, always elevating the moment. The video for Racks, their opening track saluting Oak Cliff, collected hundreds of thousands of views in the first week alone. The video for Ride had them posing with a full-size tank. The symbolism wasn't subtle. These two men were ready for anything together. But here's where the story starts to shift. Because even as that project was releasing in 2020, something much darker was unfolding in the background of the Dallas rap scene. A feud had been building, the kind of feud that the internet watched from the outside and misread constantly. M03, whose legal name was Melvin Noble, was one of Dallas's most compelling rap voices. He built a fan base through relentless grinding, releasing music that spoke honestly about his life and circumstances. He earned national recognition through a 2019 remix of Everybody alongside Baton Rouge legend Boosie Badazz, and had more than 800,000 Instagram followers. Within Dallas, he was more than an artist. He was a representative of a particular spirit, a man who refused to be small. But somewhere along the way, a conflict developed between his world and the world of Yella Beezy. That conflict played out in music, on social media, and eventually in events that would echo far beyond either of their careers. On November 11, 2020, M03 was shot and killed on Interstate 35E in Dallas in broad daylight. What happened on that highway was captured on traffic cameras and was horrifying in its clarity. A masked shooter emerged from a vehicle, approached M03's car, and pursued him on foot as he attempted to flee. M03 was shot multiple times. A bystander in the area was also struck, but survived. Melvin Noble was transported to a hospital where he died from his injuries. He was 28 years old. The footage circulated immediately, and the grief across the Dallas music community was immediate and overwhelming. For a city that was finally stepping into the national spotlight through its music, the death of M03 was a wound that cut deep. Police arrested a man named Kewan Dontrell White shortly after the shooting. White was identified as the trigger man. In 2022, he was convicted in federal court in connection with the killing and separately sentenced to 105 months, approximately 9 years, in federal prison on a firearms charge. A second man, Devin Maurice Brown, was also indicted on related charges. Brown would later accept a plea deal, claiming he acted out of personal anger after seeing a video involving M03 and his girlfriend. Both men's fates moved through the court system without the full picture of the alleged conspiracy being publicly revealed. That changed in March of 2025. On March 18, 2025, a Dallas County grand jury handed down an indictment that rocked the hip-hop world. Marquise DeAndre Conway, Yella Beezy, was indicted on a charge of capital murder for remuneration. Prosecutors alleged that Conway intentionally and knowingly hired Kewan White to murder Melvin Noble in exchange for payment. The indictment language was precise. Beezy allegedly employed White to commit the killing while remuneration was involved. 2 days later, on March 20th, Dallas police arrested Yella Beezy and booked him into the Dallas County Jail. This was 5 years after M03's death. 5 years of investigation, 5 years of street rumors, 5 years of questions finally coming to a head in a formal legal charge. Prosecutors alleged during bond hearings that financial records show Conway withdrew $40,000 in cash in the days surrounding the killing. They pointed to a bulletproof vehicle, property holdings, and substantial bank records to argue he was a flight risk and requested a $2 million bond. His grandmother took the stand and testified about the family's true financial reality. Judge Gracie Lewis lowered the bond to $750,000. And on March 28, 2025, Yella Beezy was released. He was placed on house arrest with an ankle monitor, prohibited from contacting any of the alleged victims' family members, required to submit to random drug testing in order to surrender his passport. He has pleaded not guilty to the capital murder charge. He has maintained his innocence. His attorneys are fighting every element of the prosecution's case, and that fight has been nothing short of intense. Now let's get into the part everybody came here for. Trapboy Freddy, and why his name has been all over this case. The moment Yella Beezy's arrest hit the internet in March 2025, Trapboy Freddy's name followed right behind it. Authorities identified him, born to various Don't Tell More, as a wanted suspect in connection with MO3's killing. Law enforcement sources indicated there were leads implicating Moore in the planning and execution of the crime. Not as a bystander, not as a witness called to the stand to help Beezy, as someone investigators wanted to question in connection with the murder itself. That distinction matters, and we're going to come back to it. But the streets didn't wait for the details. Within hours, the narrative had already flipped. Social media posts, YouTube thumbnails, TikToks, all of them declared the same thing. Trapboy Freddy snitched on Yella Beezy, that he went to the feds, that he gave up his brother to save himself, that the man who co-signed a project called I'm My Brother's Keeper was now the reason his keeper was headed to prison. And then Trapboy Freddy made it worse by going public. He appeared on No Jumper's social media and said that Yella Beezy had been forced to sell everything, assets, property, all of it, just to cover his bond and legal fees. For a man sitting on house arrest fighting a death penalty charge, having your day one broadcast your financial collapse to the internet is its own kind of betrayal. Whether Freddy meant it as shade, as concern, or as something else entirely, the damage was done. The streets took it as confirmation. The snitch label stuck. But here's where the real talk comes in. Because there is a major difference between what the internet decided happened and what the court records actually show. Trapboy Freddy being identified as a wanted suspect does not make him a cooperating witness. Those are two completely different legal positions. One means investigators think you may have been involved in the crime. The other means you sat down with prosecutors and gave them information to use against someone else. Being named in a case is not the same as testifying. Being wanted for questioning is not the same as cutting a deal. And going on social media to talk about your former partner's finances is not the same as walking into a courtroom and putting him away. Now think about the position Trapboy Freddy was actually in. He had a close public friendship with Yella Beezy. They made music together, revved the same neighborhood, released a collaborative project the same year MO3 was killed. He also had his own history with MO3, recording with him on tracks like Can't Double Us. He was sitting directly at the center of a web that investigators had spent 5 years untangling. Any serious investigation into MO3's death was going to land on Trapboy Freddy's name regardless of what he did or didn't do. That's not accusation, that's geometry. When you're that close to every party involved, your name is going to come up. The question of what he actually told investigators, whether he cooperated formally, whether any deal was made, none of that has been established in verified court documents available to the public. What we have is the internet's version of the story, which ran so fast and so loud that most people never stopped to ask whether it was true. Yella Beezy has not publicly called out Trapboy Freddy by name in response to the allegations. What he has done is maintain his innocence consistently and let his legal team do the talking in court. Whether that silence represents restraint, strategy, or something deeper is something only he knows. But the fact that the man who once said Freddy would always be his brother has said nothing publicly about him since the arrest speaks volumes on its own. Now let's talk about what's actually happening in court, because those developments are significant enough on their own. One of the most contested battles of Yella Beezy's pretrial proceedings has been the fight over his music. Prosecutors have filed an amended notice of extraneous evidence identifying 4 of Beezy's songs they want admitted at trial. Keep It in the Streets, On Your Head, Take 3, and Gassed Up. The argument from the prosecution is straightforward. Detective Eric Barnes testified during a multi-day pretrial hearing that because people in Dallas's rap community operated under a code of not cooperating with law enforcement, investigators had to find the story elsewhere. He said in court that they had to go to YouTube to get it, that they had to go to social media to get it, because witnesses weren't willing to speak. The detective testified that Yella Beezy allegedly referenced in song language about putting a bounty on MO3's head. Prosecutors also say that 2 of the songs, Take 3 and Gassed Up, were found in text messages Beezy allegedly sent to a co-defendant on the day of the murder. That detail, if admitted into evidence, would be particularly damaging. The defense pushed back hard. Their expert witness, Dr. Eric Nielsen from the University of Richmond, a nationally recognized scholar on the use of rap lyrics as evidence, testified during the pretrial hearing that jurors without hip-hop literacy are statistically more likely to misinterpret rap bars as literal confessions of real events. He compared rap personas to professional wrestlers, characters built for entertainment, not documentary accounts of actual behavior. His research shows that study participants who read the same violent lyrics attributed them as more dangerous when labeled as rap than when labeled as country or rock music. The racial dimension is part of his argument too, that jurors may unconsciously apply stereotypes about black men and violence when processing rap evidence in a way they simply would not with other genres. The defense's core position is that Yella Beezy is a rapper playing a role, not a man literally narrating crimes. This debate is not new to hip-hop, and that context matters for understanding what's at stake. In the YSL RICO case against Young Thug and members of his label, prosecutors attempted to use song lyrics and social media posts as proof of gang activity and criminal conspiracy. That case dragged on for years, became one of the longest and most expensive criminal trials in Georgia history, and put the entire question of rap as evidence on a national stage. It sparked a conversation among legal scholars, civil liberties advocates, working artists, and prosecutors about where the line falls between artistic expression and criminal admission, a conversation that has never fully been resolved. Yella Beezy's case drops directly into the middle of that unfinished debate. The trial represents another test of whether the American legal system can evaluate hip-hop music fairly without treating the art form itself as inherently criminal evidence of a violent mind. The pretrial proceedings have also seen a major fight over evidence volume. Beezy's attorneys filed a motion noting they had received approximately 16 terabytes of evidence from the prosecution, an almost incomprehensible amount of data. They argued that much of it consisted of jail calls that didn't involve Conway, long videos containing no relevant action, and files labeled only with confusing numerical codes. The defense contended that the sheer size of the document dump made meaningful trial preparation nearly impossible when relevant evidence was buried under irrelevant material. That motion speaks to a strategy well known in high-stakes prosecution: burying the defense under volume. Whether intentional or not, the practical effect is that lawyers with limited time and resources are forced to sift through petabytes of material while a trial date looms. The trial itself has faced delays. The February 2nd, 2026 start date was pushed back after Conway's legal team filed a motion for continuance, citing both the evidence volume issue and the passing of Conway's mother, who died during the pretrial period. He was not present in court that day, and Judge Chika Anium granted the continuance. A new pretrial hearing was set for March 6, 2026. The trial, per the most recent reporting from All Hip Hop, is now rescheduled for August 24, 2026. Meanwhile, the defense has been aggressive in its own evidence gathering. Subpoenas were issued to Securus Technologies, the company that monitors jail phone calls, to appear and produce records in connection with Beezy's case. Separate subpoenas went to the Dallas Police Department and Lancaster Police Department, requesting full incident reports, arrest records, and prosecution files connected to the MO3 murder investigation, as well as records related to an individual named Theodore Thomas. The defense was also subpoenaing the Bexar County Sheriff's Office gang unit to challenge evidence related to Beezy's alleged gang affiliation, a designation the prosecution intends to use in framing the case. Every one of these moves tells you that Beezy's attorneys believe the government's case has vulnerabilities, and they're going to press every one of them. Now let's talk about what all of this means for Dallas, and why the city's hip-hop community is watching this case in a way that goes far beyond celebrity gossip. Dallas rap was on the rise before the deaths and legal troubles began stacking up. Yella Beezy was its most visible national ambassador. MO3 was a genuine voice of a generation. Artists like Trapboy Freddy and others were building the infrastructure that would carry the city forward. There was a real moment happening, a scene that has spent years being overlooked, finally demanding its flowers. Then a feud turned lethal. A highway became a crime scene, and years of investigation led to courtrooms and indictments that forced the city to confront what it had witnessed. The musicians who once moved through Dallas as a united community now navigate a landscape where loyalty has been publicly questioned, friendship placed under a legal microscope, and art itself used as evidence in a capital murder case. Every artist in that scene is watching this trial closely, because the outcome will have implications that extend far beyond one man's fate. MO3's family is still waiting for complete answers. His fans are still grieving. The Dallas rap scene carries the weight of what happened on that highway on November 11th, 2020, in a way that doesn't just fade with time. That weight doesn't lift when an indictment drops. It doesn't lift when a trial date gets set. It stays until the full truth comes out in a courtroom, under oath, before a jury that has to decide what actually happened to Melvin Noble on that interstate in broad daylight. So where does all of this leave us with Yella Beezy and Trapboy Freddy? Let me break it down for y'all one final time. Yella Beezy is facing the most serious legal challenge of his life. Charged with capital murder for remuneration, he faces the possibility of life in prison without parole, or the death penalty under Texas law. He has pleaded not guilty. His legal team is fighting the prosecution's document dump, challenging his music's admissibility, and subpoenaing records they believe will support his defense. He is on house arrest, has been denied requests like being allowed to watch his son play football, and is navigating a life constrained entirely by court orders, while his fate remains undecided. Trapboy Freddy occupies one of the most complicated spaces in this entire story. His name entered the narrative not as a cooperating witness, but as someone law enforcement had identified as a wanted suspect in the same murder investigation. The internet collapsed that distinction immediately and turned it into a snitching allegation that spread faster than any correction ever could. What we know he actually did publicly was go on social media and talk about Beezy's financial collapse after the arrest. And in the streets, that alone was enough to seal the narrative. What remains unestablished in verified court records is whether he has cooperated with prosecutors in any formal legal capacity. That gap between what people believe and what has been proven is exactly what makes this case so combustible. And the I'm My Brother's Keeper project they released together 5 years later now carries a weight neither of them could have imagined when they chose that name. The friendship between Yella Beezy and Trapboy Freddy was once one of the defining partnerships in Dallas rap. Two Oak Cliff men who came up together, represented their city together, dropped a project named after brotherhood, and told the world through their music that they would ride for each other no matter what. They put that pledge on record, literally. And now one of them is fighting a capital murder charge that could end with a death sentence. The other has become one of the most debated figures in the online mythology surrounding that charge. And the title of the album they made together has become one of the most bitter ironies in the history of modern hip-hop. The final chapters of this story will not be written in comment sections or on social media. They will be written in a Dallas courtroom before a jury that has never heard of I'm My Brother's Keeper and doesn't care about the history of two Oak Cliff rappers who once called themselves brothers. A jury will hear evidence, witnesses will testify under oath, the songs will play, the documents will be entered into the record, and then 12 people will decide what actually happened on Interstate 35E on November 11th, 2020. Until that verdict comes down, everything else, the rumors, the snitch allegations, the social media verdicts, is noise. Loud noise, but noise. What's not noise is this: a man named Melvin Noble is gone. His family lost a son. The Dallas rap scene lost a voice. And the case surrounding his death has become a defining moment for hip-hop's relationship with the American legal system. That's bigger than any one friendship. That's the real story. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Trapboy Freddy crossed the line? Or is the internet running with a story that isn't fully there yet? Let us know where you stand. And stay locked in, because when that August trial date hits, and this case finally goes before a jury, we're going to be right here breaking every development down for you.